Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
Welcome to the Speaking of Wealth show. This is your host, Jason Hartman, where we discuss profit strategies for speakers, publishers, authors, consultants, coaches, info marketers, and just go over a whole bunch of exciting things that you can use to increase your business, to make your business more successful and more passive and more automated and more scalable. So we will be back with a great interview. Be sure to visit us at speakingofwealth.com. You can take advantage of our blog, subscribe to the RSS feed, and many other resources for free at speakingofwealth.com. And we will be back with a great interview for you in less than 60 seconds.
You know, Penny, sometimes I think of Jason Hartman as a walking encyclopedia on the subject of creating wealth.
Well, you're probably not far off from the truth, Rich. Jason actually has a 6-book set on creating wealth that comes with over 100 hours of the most comprehensive ideas on investing in business. They're in high-quality digital download audio format, ready for your car, iPod, or wherever you want to learn.
Yes, and by the way, he's recently added another book to the series that shows you investing the way it should be. This is a world where anything less than a 26% annual return is disappointing.
Jason actually shows us how we can be excited about these scary times and exploit the incredible opportunities this present economy has afforded us.
We can pick local markets that are untouched by the economic downturn, exploit packaged commodities investing, and achieve exceptional returns safely and securely.
I like how he teaches us how to protect the equity in your home before it disappears and how to outsource your debt obligations to the government.
He's recorded interviews with Harry Dent, Peter Schiff, Robert Kiyosaki, Pat Buchanan, Catherine Austin Fitz, Dr. Dennis Waitley, T. Harv Eker, and so many others who are experts on the economy, on real estate, and on creating wealth.
And the entire set of advanced strategies for wealth creation is being offered with a savings of $385.
Now, to get your Creating Wealth Encyclopedia series complete with over 100 hours of audio and 6 books, go to jasonhartman.com/store.
If you want to be able to sit back and collect checks every month, just like a banker, Jason's Creating Wealth Encyclopedia series is for you.
It's my pleasure to welcome Julia Herz to the show. She is the publisher of craftbeer.com and craft beer program director at the Brewers Association. Julia, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm doing good. Very good.
Good. Maybe I should say cheers, actually.
We say that a lot in my business.
I bet you do. Where are you located?
I'm talking to you today from Boulder, Colorado, which is where the National Association offices are.
Fantastic. Well, you're there in the Rocky Mountains, so it sounds like a Coors commercial almost, huh?
Yeah, we're at the foothills of the Rockies. Colorado's Front Range is beer booming, more than 230 breweries in Colorado, and the list goes on and on. We could talk about any state and how the beer culture is advancing quickly.
Wow, that is 230 in Colorado. That's amazing. I want to get some numbers for you on that. So we'll talk a lot about beer and have a little fun with this interview, but maybe we'll start off a little bit serious as we drink our beer and talk about your content strategy. You're a publisher, and tell us about some of the great strategies you have for running and marketing craftbeer.com.
Sure, and the website is craftbeer.com. It's 4 years old, essentially, and it's an interesting, approach that we've taken where we kind of, when you have a website, you get something out of nothing, meaning where there was no information, no content flow, no furthering of the conversation because of that content, you then advance to doing just that. And in 4 years' time, we've evolved quickly. We reach over 1 million people a year, uniques. And it's kind of just been exciting to see our foot in the ring of furthering the conversation about what's going on with small and independent craft brewers in the U.S. just by putting craftbeer.com on the map.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so how old is the website then?
About 4 years old.
Okay, so it is 4 years old only. Wow, that's pretty new in internet terms. So, explain exactly what craft beer is, and is there a distinction between craft beer and microbrew?
Sure. Great question. It comes up a lot. We at the Brewers Association, who publish craftbeer.com and also put on the Great American Beer Festival, we do not define what craft beer is. That's somewhat, basically something the beer drinker is going to discern. That's like defining local or defining organic. We all have, different views of those words and what they mean to us. But we do define what a craft brewer is. So craft brewer is smaller producing, less than 6 million barrels of beer a year, and they're independently owned, meaning no more than 25% ownership by a non-craft brewing entity. So they're the small and indie brewers of today. And frankly, today we have 2,700 breweries in the U.S., and 98% of those 2,700 breweries are small, independent, and traditionally producing breweries. So it's quite an inclusive definition that helps differentiates between the smaller indie guys and the large global brewing companies or other breweries that have different approaches to market.
Yeah, and what defines small or large? What's the difference between Anheuser-Busch and a craft brewery? I know it's different, but is there a certain cutoff point?
Sure. In production of barrels, and 1 barrel is 31 U.S. gallons of beer. That would be anything over 6 million barrels of beer a year we would consider large.
So anything over 6 million barrels per year is large.
Yeah, and you have them, Anheuser-Busch InBev in the U.S. is producing 100-some-odd million barrels of beer a year, where somebody like Sam Adams, Boston Lager producers make a little over 2 million barrels of beer a year. So quite a difference there.
Right. Okay, good. And back to the strategy question. I got off on a little tangent there, apologize. But 4-year-old website, craft beer is a big and growing phenomenon. Talk to us a little bit about your marketing.
Sure. So craftbeer.com, any website, there really isn't a roadmap. It's like building a house. You can have different architecture. That's going to highlight different features of the home, and it's going to really be up to you of what you want to highlight and where you want people to navigate through that home or website in that analogy. So craftbeer.com, we call them, buckets of information, and what's become very important to us is discern what those buckets should be. We're in, a phase 2 of the website in that we are in the back-end WordPress, where we originally were in RedPress. So WordPress, which is very common today, is the back-end architecture of craftbeer.com. And the buckets of information that are housed in there include general information on the beverage, a big section on styles, beer styles. There's 50-plus beer styles in craftbeer.com documented in the Style Finder. A focus on breweries as a big bucket of information, and that's absolutely a good thing for us to be doing. And then a bucket on food and beer pairing with craft beer on the scene is very important. I like to say craft beer has helped beer reclaim its place at the dinner table, and that's a topic close to my heart, and pairing is something that's really, a little nebulous and complex. Perception's personal, pairing's personal, so we've got a lot of great resources on that. And then we have education section, as well as our blogs. Craft Beer Muses, which is my blog, we really do have cutting-edge content from myself or beer-minded writers that include craft brewers as well that try to further the conversation on craft beer. And then other little areas, too, that kind of cover news and events and the like.
So, I got to say, and pardon me if I sound, kind of like a party pooper here, or a little skeptical, but
lay it on me. Let's hear it.
No problem. Julia, look, I drink beer, okay, but I can't imagine actually going to a beer website. because I can't drink it there, right? I mean, I don't, I drink coffee, but I never go to Starbucks website either, unless I want to log into the internet at one of the locations. Who is interested in that? I mean, how do you make something, I guess, that interesting where you leap across from bits and bytes to something that's usually dealt with in atoms and matter? Bits and bytes meaning...
And it's a busy world, too. So, you at any website, whether you're talking about craft beer like us and U.S. craft brewers or, a foodie site or a business-oriented site, whatever, you have to create a need for people to go to you. So we do have things that catch out virally amongst the beer world. Some of our muses in the blog, the Craft Beer Muses blog, or in our Brewers Banter blog, literally create a pull from the outside world based on social media chatter on what we're talking about. So if you happen to be, and the whole site, by the way, is geared towards beer beginners. We don't want to talk anything but up to people. Wine kind of lost its way, got very unattainable by price point and information. We make everything accessible for the beer beginner. So basically, Jason, if you want to enhance your appreciation, you might find us because you've caught some chatter from one of your Facebook influencers that you're tied to or on Twitter, and that might trigger your interest of, oh, yeah, that's the brewery down the street from me. I'm going to go check it out. We also have the most extensive recipe database on the internet for cooking with craft beer. So if you want a recipe, it's all sitting right there for you to set. Maybe there's only the handful of times a year that you might sit down and Google beer and food or cooking with beer. We have the most extensive database on the internet for the breweries in the U.S. So if you want to know how to contact a brewery, it's sitting there free in your database. So I think you have to do multiple things. Create content that furthers the conversation that goes a little bit viral is one key component, and then on top of that, create landing points that are more static pages, maybe updated dynamically, but they're static in what they offer, and those areas of need are evergreen and referenced throughout the year by people that would use them.
And why does I was sort of curious, it's great that you provide an easy way for someone to contact a brewery, but what would be some of the reasons someone would contact a brewery?
Touring, beer tourism.
Oh, tours. Okay.
We're the most unique, we're the most diverse destination for beer in the world. The United States is now. And so, brewery tourism is bringing economic contributions nobody imagined. Just from the segment that I represent of small and independent craft brewers, is a $38 billion economic impact in 2012 to our country.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. I didn't even think of it like going on a wine tasting tour. That's funny. I thought, there's something wrong with my beer, so I need to contact the brewery. Yeah. That's okay. Good point. Good point. So, very interesting. Where are some of the best beer touring places? I mean, we know where kind of the wine countries are. Most people do, at least. And I want to ask you about some of your events because you do a great job at that. But, is Colorado kind of like a prime location? You mentioned so many brewers there.
Yeah, there are advanced beer culture pockets in many areas of the U.S., and there's also breweries in all 50 states. Wherever you have breweries, you have tourism going, people traveling from right down the street to, outside the region into that area to visit those breweries. Most breweries do give tours. It's not like restaurants where you can't raise your hand to the waitress or waiter and say, hey, can I go back and check that kitchen out while you guys are cooking? But that's what breweries do. They walk people through their facilities, and 2,700 of them are basically doing that. So any pocket of the area where you have multiple breweries, those tend to be pulls for bigger tourism. And so, the majority of Americans live within 10 miles of a brewery, by the way. And with that, you've got, multiple breweries in one area creating, tourist central locations, California, Colorado, New York, Chicago, Michigan. The tourism is going on all over.
It's just all over. Wow. Okay. I was thinking you could name a couple areas like, if I were to ask that question about wine, you would say, Napa Valley in Northern California, for example. But beer it's kind of nice that it's more accessible, not just because of the cost is it being lower, and maybe, the snootiness element isn't there so much, but also just geography. Is it that beer, they can brew it anywhere because it's just not as picky of a thing as grapes for wine?
Well, they're brewing wine anywhere. You can transport grapes anywhere. Harvest time just happens to be in the fall with grapes, just like harvest time happens to be only in the fall with hops, which are a key component, an ingredient in beer. So beer is definitely as much of an agricultural product, and frankly, I would argue for those out there to say a more complex product than wine. The ingredients of barley that's then malted is a very complex process, where grapes, you basically just have a sugar source, with a very a less broad flavor profile amongst the grape varietals compared to what you can do with kilning and roasting with malt. And then you throw hops in the mix, which are an absolute agricultural product that are affected by terroir and location and region, and then the yeast profiles and any extra fermentables like fruit or herbs or spices, and oaking and the like, and you've got a lot to play with.
Talk to us about some of your events and the marketing of them. Yep.
The Brewers Association puts on the Great American Beer Festival, which is what we're known for on the broadest sense. It's a 49,000 event festival that's more than 30 years old. I actually started at the association as a volunteer at that festival. And, being a beer enthusiast, many people often take it further and want to volunteer at events or steward at competitions and become a beer judge and the like. So our Great American Beer Festival is a public tasting of hundreds of breweries, as well a private competition of hundreds of breweries. And so if brewers won a medal at the Great American Beer Festival, it means they make the best example of that beer style on that year, deemed by the judges. And so that's super, super important. Breweries getting on the map with any one of those medals that are very rare to get. It's actually interesting. In wine competitions, most of the wine competitions out there, you get a certain point level in a competition, you are automatically awarded a medal. We do it differently in the beer world, where there's only one gold, one silver, one bronze, and sometimes the judges don't even award one of those if they didn't feel that there was an example in that style. So few and hard to come by for those GABF awards for sure. That's one of our big events.
Did you mention attendance at that event, average?
49,000 people.
49,000 people. And any sort of clever marketing ideas for an event like that? I mean, of course you have your email list that you're collecting at the website and so forth. Just anything along the marketing of the event, anything else you want to mention?
Sure. I mean, we're part of a very enthusiastic community. Beer lovers are very enthusiastic, and beer beginners often continue beyond light American lager, and then the journey from there is very broad. We tap into those beer enthusiasts. I mean, we're one of the largest volunteer efforts in the country, literally, to put on this festival. About 3,000 volunteers help us put it on. So I would say in any event that you put on, tap into the enthusiasts behind that topic and get them involved in your event and give them rewards for doing so they can then in turn add to the education and garner from the education that happens at those specific events.
Good idea. Okay, good. Well, you've been very helpful in sharing all of this stuff. Is there anything you want to mention about beer itself, in terms of pairing and things like that? I bet a lot of listeners haven't thought much about beer pairing. Of course, we've heard about that when it comes to wine, but not beer, probably. Anything you want to mention there in terms of pairing?
Sure. And beer pairing is huge. We've been doing it for thousands of years. And what works with wine is wine has acidity, and that calms down salt in food, and that allows us to taste more of the flavors that actually are in existence. On top of beer being able to do that, because beer also has acid components, beer also complements and harmonizes with a lot of flavors. Grilled, roasted, smoked meats have many, many complementary flavors, with what's going on in the malt in the beers. And then if you can find flavors to harmonize with the hops of herbal notes, woodsy notes, citrusy notes, tropical notes, beer to food, you're going to have a lot of harmonies. And when you find harmonies, you often have, that 1 + 1 = 5, where things get a lot more delightful quickly. So you want it just to be a beverage next to your food and not strategic. Awesome, have at it. But when you strategically pair, you're often very rewarded, and it makes the food, be even more impressive.
So any particular types of beer that you want to mention for pairing with those, or is that sort of too complex, maybe?
Well, I mean, big picture, it's a hard nut to crack in knowing how to approach pairing. We document at the Brewers Association 142 beer styles, so that is something that's a challenge. Today, I would recommend, you want to pair, go to any better beer provider that's, a larger liquor store or supermarket that has big selection is what I'm getting at, and has knowledgeable people selling those brands, and ask them for some U.S.-centric, the least traveled amount is what I often try for. Beers from my backyard are going to be fresher, frankly, than the ones that have traveled across country or been imported in. So I want fresh beers. I also want base beers that are going to go with the food. If you're open-minded, then, craftbeer.com has amazing pairing suggestions. Or if you already have a pairing a food item that you want to pair to, then you can talk to that person at that establishment, tell them what you're cooking, and ask them what beer style or brand they think would pair best with it. And again, look for harmonies. Don't overwhelm with impact. You don't want something too big in alcohol to go with something too light in weight for the food. And if you just pay attention to those two things, you'll be on your way.
Fantastic. Great advice. Well, Julia, this has been a lot of fun. Julia Herz, and the websites are craftbeer.com and then brewersassociation.org. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jason. Have a great day.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.